Hey everyone, David Neagle here. I want to talk to you about some ideas for the new year. We are in a new year. We're going to do amazing things this year, and there's some things that we need to pay attention to that are very important. I want to talk to you about the idea of never quitting when it gets hard, but we also need to be thinking about a couple of things. And one is how we have approached things that are difficult in the past. And have we learned something from that? And have we created a plan to change how we're going to deal with difficult things in the future? This is proving to probably be one of the most challenging years around the world that we've ever seen. There are so many changes going on for lots of different reasons. People's difficulty, a lot of their difficulty is being created by the beliefs that they're creating consciously and unconsciously about the world that's going on around them. So let's just talk about business for a few moments here. There are many laws changing. There's all different kinds of different ideas that are being brought to the table when it comes to business, when it comes to opportunity, when it comes to innovation. We're innovating at just a rapid speed in life. And most people go around and they don't really pay attention all that much to what's happening around them. So they don't have a tendency to really notice the changes that are taking place. And that can be a detriment to anybody. And the reason for that is because we get very locked into the way that we're doing the things that we're doing. And of course, there's no way for me to speak to every change that you're experiencing or could possibly even experience in your life and in your business. But we must know something, a couple of facts that we just need to kind of lay out for the year. One of them is that there's going to be massive change around the world, possibly even chaos to a great extent. We're already seeing it going into the year, right? There's elections happening this year. There's wars that are happening. There's all kinds of problems that humanity is trying to figure a messy way through. And all of these things affect us in various different ways. If we just try to go to the place of thinking positive without actually accepting the fact that we are in a difficult time and acknowledging that to ourselves so that we can psychologically prepare for what needs to be done in our own life and business this year, we make a mistake if we don't do that. So what happens? Like if we break this down to like first principles thinking, right? All the way down to the basics of you and I and how we're approaching business and life right now. One of the things is that we all have things that we're doing every day. And our perception of how we're doing them is either that this thing is easy or this thing is hard. Many of us were raised with the idea of having a really hard work ethic. And in my journey, in my teaching and working with people for 25 years, one of the little psychological constructs that I've come across is that while I do believe in hard work and I do believe in diligent work, very often that concept, that idea of working hard literally begins to change the mind of the person that is adopting it. So they begin to self-identify with that. Now, I've spoken about this before many times, but it's worth repeating here again, because the idea is that if I all of a sudden start thinking that things that have to be hard, I will look through a lens of perception that actually makes them hard. And then when I come up against problems and I've deemed them to be hard or difficult or whatever language that you want to wrap around them, one of the problems that I have is that it becomes exhausting. It can become psychologically exhausting. It can become physically exhausting. I've worked with thousands of businesses all over the world, and I've watched people drop like flies when things get hard. The tendency for us is to work even harder, to push back harder when things get hard. But we want to develop a belief that helps move us past that, because things are going to get hard. There's no question about it. If not now, they will at some point. So I just want to give a few tips that are fundamental, basic changes that you can make in your thinking and your belief system that will allow you to sail right through difficult times, okay? The first part of it is this. Our greatest power is our ability to choose. And how we choose to believe and how we choose to think creates that lens in which we see the world through perception. Nothing is hard unless you actually compare it to something else. Everything just is. So when I'm saying, hey, I've got this problem, this thing is really hard, somewhere in my mind, I'm comparing what I'm dealing with right now to something else that I've experienced in my life. I could just as easy say this is easy, even if it doesn't appear easy up front. There's been many people that have argued with me over the years about that idea, like, no, we need to say that it's hard. Well, my question is, what do you want the outcome to be? Would you like to be able to move through whatever the challenge is relatively easy, to get to the other side, to come up with a solution to the problem, to be able to break through to the next level for yourself? I think you would. I know that I definitely would. But if I don't realize that my belief about something is actually creating the way that I interpret it and the information that I'm attracting to myself to solve the problem, I will continue to make it hard. Because if I self-identify with, I'm a great person because I've overcome all of these hard things in my life, I will have a tendency to make things difficult in order to be able to fulfill my ideological preference of how I see myself versus what I'm actually doing. If you walked around telling people that you were successful, telling people that you were wealthy, okay, and every time they asked you about it, you said it's easy, piece of cake, there's nothing difficult about this, what do you think the reaction would be that you would get from the average individual? It probably wouldn't be good. Because the average individual would love to be successful, like in their mind, they wish that they could do this, or they wish they could have a lot of money, but they actually believe that it's difficult. They have a lot of beliefs that keep them stuck way down very low, right? It's difficult, I'm not smart enough, I don't have the opportunity. I hear over and over again from people, I can't make a lot of money because I don't have any money. They have all kinds of false beliefs about what it actually takes to become successful. But I've also, not only have I noticed within myself and experimented with many people, if you change the first fundamental belief that success is easy, something shifts. If you install that in a belief in your mind, you literally begin to see things through a very different lens. Now, all the information that ever was or ever will be is simultaneously existing and created within the universe. So I can't have a problem without a solution. That's a given fact right there, right? That's an absolute universal law, a truth. You can't have one thing without its opposite existing at the same time. So if I have a problem, the way through that problem, the answer to that problem, the solution of that problem, it has to be here at the same time. But if I'm thinking through the lens that this needs to be difficult, I will also interpret that solution as being difficult, or I will interpret various different constructs of that solution in order to be difficult. However, if I start telling myself that it's easy, that success is easy, that earning a lot of money is easy, I will start to attract the easiest path that exists in the universe, the straightest path to whatever it is that I want to be, do, or have, whatever it is that I want to create in my life and in my business, and I will move through it very, very quickly. Now, I know some people will have a really difficult time with this, and I understand that people have a difficult time with it, but I'm thoroughly convinced, and it's 100% belief of mine, that this can be easy, but you have to be the one that changes it. So what makes something hard if it's not your perception of something? I mean, really think about that. Take that away today and give it some serious thought. There's nothing that makes anything hard other than our awareness or lack of awareness around the problem that it is that we're attempting to fix. Now, as we go into a period in history, when there's a lot of upset in life, where there's confusion, where there's chaos that's happening. Think back to COVID. I know you don't want to think about COVID. Nobody really does. Everybody's COVID exhausted in their mind. But ask yourself a question. If you knew what you knew today about COVID, what changes would you have made ahead of time in order to make it through that upset in your life? What changes would people have made? What would they have chose to do differently? How would they have prepared differently for it? We worked with a lot of people during that time that were really struggling with their business, and they were so convinced that everything was hard because what was normal had began to change around them, that they didn't understand how to think outside of the box in order to get solutions that were just as easily as attracted as any other thought and would allow them to continue to move forward and keep their business and to keep it healthy and actually to keep it profitable. Everybody that we worked with during that time period kept their business going and kept it moving forward while we watched thousands, if not millions of people actually go out of business and just have terrible struggles. And that's not a criticism of any person. When you sit back and you ask yourself, what's the difference? The difference is in our ability to think through what we believe is a difficult time. Like we can say, okay, this is difficult. Fine, we've labeled it difficult, but I now have to change the way that I'm thinking about this so I can come up with solutions that I can employ right now. What about the urgency when a problem shows up? Doesn't that create tremendous stress on people? Something has gone wrong. Sales have stopped coming in. My marketing's not working. A law was changed. There was some kind of government mandate. I can no longer move in the direction that I was the way that I am. So this is difficult. This is, oh my God, what's going to happen? Everything's going to fall apart. What are we going to do now? How are we going to take care of the family? However, what if a simple change on the front end of that idea? There's a solution out there. It's there right now. What I have to do is put myself in harmony with that solution, and that's easy. Because I have to believe that the solution is there. I have to believe that there's an easy solution. That doesn't mean that there won't be challenges. That doesn't mean that you don't have to work. It just means that the answer is always there, period, 100% of the time. So here's another change that we can make. See every obstacle as an opportunity. Every obstacle that shows up, if I see it as an obstacle and I'm like, oh hell, I've got this other obstacle that I have to overcome, I immediately go into the idea that it's difficult. And it creates major problems in my mindset. It creates major problems for my team. It creates major problems for how we're going to work through it. But if you change the idea that every obstacle is an opportunity for you to move forward to what it is that you want. Remember, you're setting goals this year, right? You have an intention of what it is that you want to create for yourself this year. You want to do magnificent things. So you've already started down a road in your life to create what it is that you want. Now that means that everything that is coming to you, right, is either a way for you to get there or a way not for you to get there. So it seems. However, when we don't recognize something as being an opportunity, we very often see it as an obstacle because it presents itself in a way where we're only looking at what we don't have or what we can't do or why this is going to make things difficult. Opportunities don't always come in a pretty package with a great Christmas bow on them. They usually come in forms of misfortune, temporary defeat, trouble, and what allows one person to move through it versus another person is the mindset that they have about it. If I know that every obstacle that comes my way is in fact an opportunity for me to grow, to be more, do more, have more in my life, and I begin to see it that way, I will begin to see the good in everything that shows up. Right? Now, does that mean that you're going to like it? No, of course not. You may like it, you may not like it. It really depends on what it is. That's a personal human preference. But even that is a construct of the way that we've been taught to think as children, right? Most of our preferences we didn't develop. They were passed on to us in some way, and we adopted them. But just know that there's nothing there that is solid in its formation, meaning you don't have to go through life continuing to think that way. Your greatest gift is your ability to choose. I can choose to change my thinking. I can choose what I want to think. I can choose what I want to say. I can choose to change what I want to say. I can choose how I see the world, and I literally can choose to make things easy versus making things difficult. Now, we don't want to equate easy with lazy because it has nothing to do with it. It has nothing to do with it. We've got to break the idea in our mind that things are difficult. We can move forward much quicker if we began to think to ourselves, this is actually easy. Just look at, for instance, history over, say, the last 120 years. Success is coming faster, quicker, and easier to people than any other time in history. Why is that? Because we have more knowledge. The more knowledge that we have actually makes life a bit easier for us. It makes going, as we put those pieces of the puzzle together, it makes going to the next level, understanding the next thing, creating or inventing the next technology. It makes it easier because we have all of this information. But it's also the fact that in our mind, it's not as difficult as when we had no visual references around us for creating something, because that's what created the appearance of slow over time. Remember, all the information that's around to create the iPhone or this microphone or the camera that I'm looking into, that existed back when we lived in caves, when we were hunter-gatherers. That information existed then, but we had no connection to it in our mind. We had no visual or human experience around us to say that this was even possible. But if you go back to the late 60s and late 60s, early 70s, when Star Trek was a prime time show, most of the things that were on there were total sci-fi, like it was imagination. Like, this is never stuff that we're actually going to have. And now we have cell phones, we have lasers, we have the ability to communicate in various different ways. Elon Musk is creating rocket ships to go to Mars. Like, all of this stuff is becoming a reality because somebody started thinking, if I can think it, I can do it, and I create it. So the real idea for today is this: never quit because it gets hard. Hard is actually a signal telling your mind to change it to easy and realize that every single thing that you need to know is already here, but you want to put your mind on the same frequency of that information that you want to receive. And the more that you keep saying that it's easy, the easier it will be, and everything that you need will show up. Let's make it a great year.